Standing up in McKinney, this is According to Callus. And today is the 1st of April, 2024, the year of our Lord, 2024, also known as Fool's Day, and today's episode is entitled, No Fools. Reason being is, I don't believe that anybody that I deal with is a fool. I believe that there are people that are misled, distracted, but by and large, there's just not a lot of fools out there. Or at least none that I spend time with. So before we get into the meat of the day, let me remind you the best way you can help me make a difference, get our voice heard, grow the show, quite frankly, make an alternate understanding of what's going on known in our community is to like, share, and subscribe to this program. You can follow me on your social media of choice. I have a page and a group over at Facebook. I drop in over at MeWe, and I am a pro at Gab. And for now, I'm still over at YouTube, where I upload the shows. The biggest thing that you can do to overcome the algorithm, right? That everything comes down to the algorithm. It seems that I have the strangest recording track record. I'll have episodes that are well over 1,000, multiple of them in a row, and boom, I get 20. It makes no sense. But I will tell you, last week we were back up in the mid 500s, I think, on average. And I'm grateful for that. I am trying to make sense of what exactly is at play here. I think part of it is that people tune in and they expect or they want somebody to throw a bunch of bombs, tossing the live grenades, just burning it all down. And I got to tell you, as a Gen Xer, it is very tempting. Very, very tempting. And my first inclination often is to just light it up, right? Just let it fly. But the reality is that the difference will never be made if all I do is trash talk. All I do is throw the bombs. No, nobody's going to hear anything. Oh, I might actually grow a bigger audience, right? That is the easiest thing to do. They come on and trash talk smack, and light it up. But instead, I try and stay objective. And what I mean by objective is I try and give my opponents the benefit of the doubt. I try and be gracious and assume that not everybody is evil. Not everybody is some progressive leftist socialist that wants to destroy everything. I try and work with and understand those that I might disagree with but believe are actually good people. Which is kind of where the title of today's program comes with, right? No fools. Nobody wants to spend time with fools. I certainly don't want to invest my time and my efforts to help fools. So I just avoid them, or I choose not to spend time with them. And if I determine that somebody is, in fact, a fool, I'm not going to get mad. I mean, people are who they are. Just don't put in the effort anymore. And there are other reasons why you might cut somebody off or just choose not to deal with them or not bend over backwards anymore. But why empower somebody that is counterproductive? Why continue to assist somebody that refused to take the advice when given, that dismisses anybody that tries to help them? It's counterproductive. When I look at that, that's what comes to mind. So that's what the goal of the show is, right? That's where we're looking to make a difference. Is I'm going to give you my thoughts, give you my opinions, try and remain objective and level-headed when doing so. Acknowledge that somebody else might have a point, or there might be a legitimate reason why somebody's doing something. But at the end of the day, you're trusting me to be fair and to tell the truth as I see it. And that's really important to me. Is I don't go out here and just throw those bombs. I don't come up here and talk smack. I make a point to know a little bit about what I'm speaking of. And I freely acknowledge that occasionally I might not have all the information, or I could make a mistake. And if it's brought to my attention, I will be glad to tell you, hey, I got this wrong, or I didn't know this, or, here's something new or something different that I hadn't considered when I was making my opinion. So, we'll just step right off into it, right? Today is typically my day I talk about local things. So here we go, local stuff, right? So we've got the city of McKinney, which historically has not always made the best decisions when attracting businesses, when trying to get new companies to come in, new developments. We haven't made we don't have a very good track record. That'd be the best way to put it. Now, I'm going to also be even-handed here and say most all of this predates the current mayor. So if you want to talk smack about why McKinney didn't develop like Frisco or even Allen for that matter, most of that was preset long before 2017. So you got to give credit where credit's due. So I look at it and I see that we have a situation where we have to find a way to differentiate ourselves from our neighbors. We need to find something unique and enticing to get people interested in coming to McKinney. When they're in McKinney, what are they going to do? They're going to spend money. They're going to visit. They're going to do these different things. But really what we're looking for is to bring in new innovative businesses and get things in here that alter the tax base, right? Bring in more employers, which in turn brings about more people, more growth. The problem is, and this is kind of where the divergence begins, Plano is more or less built out. And the things that aren't built out are now being basically converted into high density living arrangements. Now, most of the people that live in Plano don't want any more urbanization. They don't need the desire to have another couple thousand people in a tightly packed space. They left where they came from to come to Plano to get away from that. Likewise, really and truly, McKinney especially, maybe less so than Frisco. When Frisco started its growth spurt, everybody kind of knew they were going high density and more business and more attraction, if you will, whereas McKinney tried to stay the more sedate bedroom neighborhood kind of thing. Not that anything's better one way or the other, it's just a different mindset, a different goal. And in the process, we lost out on a number of large businesses that might have wanted to come here, which is why I think there is so much emphasis, on this airport. Why they bent over backwards to get, the Tups Brewery deal done. Why they're spending so much, I'll just say it, money and effort to build out the new City Hall complex. They know we put ourselves kind of behind the eight ball. We didn't plan this stuff out earlier, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, to where we would be benefiting when the massive amount of growth hit this area. But I will say this, I don't believe you can actually plan all this stuff out. I don't think it works out the way you intend. I mean, even if we just look 10 miles south of us in the heart of Plano, they had everything set out in kind of a grid pattern, and about every mile or so they had heavy duty corners where there were supposed to be a lot of businesses. And a lot of those businesses came and died, or they couldn't sustain because there's too many too close, or it wasn't a good location, or it didn't grow out fast enough, or choose your own conclusion as to why it didn't work out that way. And now they're coming into those areas that had formerly been commercial or left vacant on purpose for further development, and they're dumping in the high density living spaces, which alters the entire character of that location. We would like to avoid that in McKinney. And in fairness, where we've put in most of our apartment complexes in McKinney actually do make sense by and large. They're closer proximity to the highways, right? And they're still not cheap by any stretch, but they're in areas where they make geographic sense by and large. Not all of them, but I think we've done a better job than Plano, in my opinion. Does that mean I'm happy and I'm thrilled and McKinney's done everything well? No. But if you got to compare it to what's nearby. I mean, if you look at Frisco, one of the reasons why they were able to leapfrog us is they had these major developments that went in off of both Preston and the tollway. Of course, having Jerry as a major investor doesn't hurt. But then when you look at what we have in McKinney, so if you look at the top 10 employers of the city of McKinney, or in the city of McKinney, right? People that live in the city, or I should say, the business that are located in the city of McKinney that employ the most amount of people. So you got the ISD is number 2, the county, which is number 3, which makes sense. The county headquarters or the county courts are there. Then you throw in the city of McKinney at number 6, and then Collin College, which again, the headquarters, the main enchilada, if you will, is also in McKinney, is number 8. So 4 out of the top 10 are government. And then if you toss in, the number 1 is Raytheon, which is a government contractor. The 9 and 10 are the Baylor Hospital and the Medical City Hospital, respectively. So now you have 7 of the top 10 that are almost entirely dependent on government funds. Now, for better or for worse, that's what the major employers are in McKinney. So when you look at how McKinney's growing and the trajectory, knowing that 7 of the top 10 employers are largely dependent on government funds, some of it starts to make a little sense. Some of it starts to create a picture within a picture, if you will. And again, it is what it is. We can't undo what has happened. We can't really change what we are, but we can think about where do we want to go in the future. What do we want to do? Now, for instance, we have Byron Nelson up in McKinney now. And again, credit where credit is due. The city council, the MEDC, the MCDC, all these organizations work together to get us that. That's a major thing. Now, what are we actually getting out of it? I don't know, other than our name is in the news, and it's it's something we have that Frisco doesn't. I mean, when you come down right down to it, that's a lot of it what it is, right? So when you talk about the city and the city's growth, and if there's not a plan or a vision, and here's the thing, a lot of times they make these comprehensive plans, they lay out what they want to see happen. It pigeonholes people and things and territories, and it's really not fair to the people that are already there, because a lot of times there's not a significant amount of input. Now, some would say that if you're not participating, if you're not putting in your input and you're unhappy, that's on you. That's your fault. That's your problem. Well, I would say that in part they're true. That's a fair statement. If you do nothing, say nothing, yeah, then some of that's on you. But the other thing is, you're having to overcome the developers, the city fathers, the visionaries, if you will, and I'm going to use that term loosely, that have a plan for the city that you live in. How do you work through that? If we looked at it from the standpoint that we're supposed to all be on the same team, we have a similar preferred outcome. That is, the city of McKinney grows stronger, and as it grows smart, right? It makes sense. I think if we look at it that way, most of us can be mostly happy, right? Not everybody's going to be happy all the time, but most of us can be mostly happy most of the time. There is a way forward. The partnership exists. The opportunity is there. I want to contrast this now as I pivot to the next issue, to the school district. Now, social media has got flamethrowers on all sides, and I can't say I've never tossed a few grenades in my own time. But when it comes down to it, the school district and the people that run the school district are elected officials, and they're supposed to work for us. So when they hear repeatedly from multiple people that there's an issue, or we have certain expectations, or we have concerns, and they routinely dismiss, mock, and deride those that bring that to their attention, I could easily make the argument that they're not interested in doing the right thing. They're not interested in representing those that use their services. And then they turn around and complain when people don't want to participate in the school district. No, they still want your money. They just don't want your input. They still want you to have to pay up, but they don't want your influence. It doesn't work both ways. You know, the person that's paying for the dinner, if you will, ought to be able to determine what's on the menu. So I get a little frustrated because I look over at our neighboring city, Frisco, and it's not perfect. But their ISD went a different direction. Their ISD has shortcomings, has issues, but they at least have some people on their school board that are interested and want to hear what's going on. They want to be involved and they want to provide answers. They want to provide solutions. And rather than fight and push back and call names about people bringing things and issues to their deliberation, they spend some time to get into it. And in fairness, they have a far lefty and they have a couple of stalwart conservatives, and the other people are somewhere in between, and they try to reflect the community they're in. We don't really have that in McKinney. The ISD is very much locked in that they want to do their own thing, and they are more concerned and more interested in shutting down my man Chad Green and silencing him and preventing him from being able to say or do anything than actually dealing with the issues at hand. They're not really interested in confronting problems that are brought to their attention. And if they're really interested in protecting the school district, if they're really interested in rewarding the teachers, if they're really interested in growing the system, if you will, and again, I'm not a huge fan of any of this, mind you, but if they were really interested, this is where you would take the opportunity to listen to the people that actually participate in the school district and pay for the school district to exist. Instead, we have employees that dictate the terms to their bosses, which would be the school board, of how things ought to be because, quote unquote, they're the experts. But yet the district seems to be failing the children. This district seems to not be following the charge or the desires of the parents in the district. And again, any one meeting is only going to give you a sliver of information of the people that participate in your district and are interested in what's going on. You have to at least give the pretension that you care what they're saying, even be slightly interested. And I know that's a challenge. I really do. I've seen it firsthand. Unlike some of my friends, I don't see that it's worth my continued investment to go there and try and talk sense. I've kind of made my stand. I've told them what the expectations were and that they really need to acknowledge the concerns brought to them, and to continue to trample on them and ignore them is not going to bring about a cohesive answer. Oh, they may win their elections, but these people are checking out. These people are sooner or later going to determine that the district is no longer worthy of their input, their efforts. And when you look at that directly corresponds, we're changing topics again, a little over 4 minutes there. We're going to change the topic. We're dealing with a dysfunctional school district in McKinney, which I think is largely salvageable and solvable, if you will, if people would just remember we're all allegedly on the same team. We want to do the same thing, which is take care of our children, raise a good, responsible group of children into becoming young adults. If we could just remember that, I think we'd be in a pretty good place. But it seems to me that the different visions, the different ideas of what that looked like are colliding or in a collision course, if you will, that they can't seem to think about the bigger picture. Now, my attitude has always been that the school district is working as it was designed. That the schools, even though they appear to be failing, are in fact accomplishing exactly what they were designed to do by some of the early designers. But rather than belabor you with going over that again, rather than repeating what I think is obvious, I will just say check out earlier episodes that I've done on this. Now, as I pivot, so I've covered the city to a degree. I've covered the school district in part. Now I'm going to go over to the county party. Now, as a Republican, it's a trying time, but as a Republican, I never seem to be more surprised than when the latest bit of drama comes out and we spend the most amount of time attacking our own, rather than dealing with the known issues and the known problems that we have from those on the other side. And I would say this: I believe there are a number of good people that happen to be Democrats. I believe there are a number of kind-hearted, well-spoken, highly thought of individuals that just happen to vote Democrat. Now, I believe that number is shrinking as time goes by, but I believe they're there. They are not our enemy. They are not our problem. They're wrong, but they at least can see things for what they are. They at least acknowledge reality, if you will, but they're easily swayed by the people to the left of them. But when we spend all of our time punching right and punching further right and knocking each other out, fighting for control of our party or fighting for control of what the message is, these folks are like, why do we want to work with them? They have nothing to offer us. There's no message here. There's no plan. They are not a value add to our community. Why do we want to deal with these folks? So then that leaves them only the crazy leftist, socialist, progressives who are currently in charge of a lot of things, even though they don't necessarily self-identify as that. But you're never going to beat them until you acknowledge who the enemy is, who the problem is, who are the people we ought to be targeting to remove from power and authority. But unfortunately for me, my Republican Party, they're still in the purity spiral. And yet again, more proof came out this last week. Somebody wrote a letter looking to put forth ethics charges on candidate Shelby Williams because he mentioned publicly, hey, before we get into this runoff, I went to the person that came in second place, with a significant smaller percentage than what I had. And I just missed the runoff, this Shelby speaking, by 0.3% or 0.6%, whichever. But I said, hey, you know what? We don't need to do this runoff. If you'll just agree that, I won or I should be the next chairman, I will nominate you to be the first vice chair. That'll give you a great learning opportunity, get you very involved, a certain amount of influence, and we can work together. Okay, so it seems to me that would be a perfectly normal, logical thing to do. Now, keeping in mind, there's no money changing hands here. There's no guarantee of anything because anything that's nominated doesn't necessarily mean it happens. So there's no there. There's no crime. There's no anything. But if you thought that there were, if you thought this was a problem, if you thought this was something worthy of filing an ethics complaint, then I would suggest to you that you need to go ahead and file it against the other person as well. Ellen Lovelace, who told me firsthand that when she was made this offer by Shelby, she retorted, well, why don't you resign? Let me be the chairman, and then I'll nominate you to be the first vice chair. So, I mean, if one is wrong for doing it, then the other one must be wrong for doing it. I mean, I asked Shelby about it. He acknowledged that it happened. Ellen's the one that told me about it. I mean, again, I don't see anything wrong with the question. Hey, we can just end this. We can move on. We can step into the next big thing, which would kind of fulfill the whole idea of John stepping down immediately so that one of us could take over. So we don't have to go through this arduous situation of a runoff. That, out of 10,000 some voters, I missed having a straight out majority by a couple hundred votes. I mean, we could just do that, and I'd be happy to partner with you. And, it's fair game if you want to counter offer. I have no issue. Now, keep in mind, I don't believe either candidate did anything wrong. I think negotiation is the essence of political service, of politics. But to go and file an ethics complaint because somebody made a open-ended request of one of their former opponents or current opponents is just ludicrous. It's not like he was offering to pay off. It's not like they were offering a for sure thing. No, it was just if we'll just quit doing this, I'll I'll nominate you for this. And when the other person says the other thing right back, well, now they've canceled each other out. Neither one was willing to do it. But if you're going to file charges against one, it seems to me you have to file charges against the other. Now, again, just to explain how ludicrous this stuff is, 9 years. 9 years and I guess 3 election cycles, the current Attorney General has been dealing with what I would call fraudulent claims of impropriety against him, most of which had it been dealt with 9 years ago for a clerical error, as far as I can tell. And whether I think it's a crime or not is largely irrelevant. When you sign something saying, well, yeah, there was a mistake made here, I'll just pay this fine and move on, and they keep coming after you, creating new charges and new things that they've dreamed up that you did wrong, it's no wonder that the guy wins by bigger margins each time. It's no wonder that people don't see right through this. So I ask you, if you're a big fan of Attorney General Paxton and you can see the lawfare for what it is, right? It's not warfare, it's lawfare. Why would you think this would be a good idea to do it against the person running for the county chair? I mean, somebody ought to actually have to do something wrong before we sue them or try and bury them in a legal suit. Now, you could say what you want about Frederick Fraser, my state rep. I think it was a foolish, dumb thing to do to touch your opponent's signs. I told him as much. I think it would be fair to say he wishes that he didn't do that. And then, of course, being caught on film doing it doesn't help your situation. But the fact of the matter is he won the election. He's there. And he still hasn't lost yet his re-election. But what's most disappointing to me, and keeping in mind, I voted for the guy in the runoff last go-round. I supported him in his first election after it went to a runoff. And the guy tells me, well, I probably shouldn't have done that, but I didn't really do this other stuff. And he's telling the general public, not me personally, but telling the general public that he didn't do it at all. I'm sorry. I know you have to do that if you're in a criminal case. You don't want to admit your guilt. I get it. But doggone it. Well, first of all, it shouldn't be a felony in my opinion, but be that as it may, how disappointing does it have to be? I mean, at what point do we go from I don't really care, that was foolish, I'll let it go, to, you know what? You did it. It was stupid. It was petty. You lied about it. Okay. Then you got caught. And then you say, well, there's nothing else that's going on here. Yet the Texas Rangers play a recording where you're telling somebody something that they have to do because of code enforcement. And it's done in such a way that it could be drawn either conclusion, right? Well, that was the city calling me or somebody calling me on behalf of the city. And again, I get it. And I have a lot of grace for the guy because I know the guy. I wouldn't say we're best friends or anything, but he's a very gregarious guy. He's just, if that's the guy you're going to go out to the, bowling alley with or the sports bar, that's the guy you want around. I mean, he'll regale you with stories. He's a fun guy to be around, but I'm not sure anymore that he's the best guy to be the state rep if he can't even tell truth from fiction. I mean, I know as police officers, they get to lie to people. That's part of the process. They get to trick, manipulate, and abuse the truth in order to get suspects to agree that they committed a crime or trap them or catch them. I get it. But when you're running as a public official and you're dependent upon the public's trust, you probably ought to not do that anymore. I'm just saying. So when I look at the silliness that's going on at the county party where we're going after a guy that openly said, hey, I made this offer. It was declined, but I made the offer because that's how much I care about the party. That's how much I care about the unity. And I was willing to work with the situation as it is. And then the person that came in second place made the counter offer and they both declined it. Yet somebody out there decided, well, I'm going to go file charges about this. I mean, come on. How silly, how reductive, how low do we have to go in the Collin County Republican sphere here? I mean, I get it. You don't like him. Perhaps you don't like him because the guy's a big supporter of the Convention of States. So you know what? I count Shelby Williams as a friend. And we have agreed to disagree on this issue a long, long time ago. And we've been able to disagree without being disagreeable. And I have a certain amount of trust and respect that I impute upon him based upon those conversations and the way we've interacted. And we both feel that you should be able to work with somebody even though you don't agree with a number of things. You know, just because somebody is 20% of the time in disagreement with me does not make me 20% my enemy. He makes that 80% my friend, right? The old adage that you're supposed to work with people that you generally agree with. That's the problem in my party. And while, unfortunately, I'm now looked at another runoff in HD61 by a guy that, quite frankly, damaged his credibility severely with a lot of us, at what point do you just quit overlooking this stuff? I mean, for me, it's simple. Shelby Williams is the most eligible and, dare I say, qualified candidate on the ballot to be the county chair. That doesn't mean that the other candidates were bad. That doesn't mean that the other candidates didn't have any good qualities. It just means that they're not to the same level. Now, you can feel free to say, I can't look past his support at Convention of States. You can feel free to say the guy is already on the city council and already busy with these other things. I don't think he can handle that. You know what? Respectfully, I can understand that. I think maybe you're wrong, but I can at least respect that you have a thought out answer. But when you tell me that you just don't like the guy, or you don't like the guy for a specific issue, or you know what, I like this other person better, but I can't tell you why, or whatever, I'm at a loss. I'm at a loss. So, you know, Catlin County Republican Party, the Republican candidates, they've just let me down time and time again. And I'm supposed to be a good Republican. I'm supposed to carry the water here. I'm supposed to have their back. I'm supposed to cheerlead for them. I'm supposed to be excited. You know, I watched the slime situation get thrown on my friend Abraham George, who I think should be the next Texas or the state of Texas Republican Party chairman. Absolutely think he's the best guy. Does that mean I don't like Wayne Martinez? No, I like Wayne Martinez just fine. As a matter of fact, if Wayne Martinez wins, I'll be just fine with that as well. But guess what? Abraham's my friend. Abraham's qualified, and I'm going to support Abraham. But I don't get mad, and I don't dismiss, and I don't disparage somebody else that wants to support Wayne Martinez. Why should I? Likewise, Shelby Williams. I think he's the best, most qualified candidate we have for the county party. I don't know that he's going to be able to do all the things that we would like to have happen, but I think he's going to do the best job at getting as close to those things as we can, and that's the best we can hope for. But guess what? If you disagree with me, as long as you have a valid, reasonable idea that the other person might do a better job in A, B, or C, and you're happy about that, I'm not going to get mad at you. I'm not going to fight you. I'm not going to call you names. I'm not going to dismiss you. But unfortunately, a lot of people that are supposed to be on my team just don't feel that way. Not in the reverse. And now I got to deal with the constant drama in my HD seat. I don't know what I'm going to do with this yet. I really don't. I think I know what I want to do. And it's not even so much that I want to. It's I have to. If I want to stay consistent, if I want to be on the right side, if you will, of this matter, I'm going to have to make a decision. I'm going to have to go public sooner or later. I'm going to have to accept the consequences that may occur. But at the end of the day, if you want to be good conservatives and if you want to stand for good, positive things, you have to be willing to do that, and you have to be willing to put something on the line. I'm proud to say my two friends that are running for those offices are putting something on the line. I put something on the line every day I make an episode. My wife says, people are recording you. Yeah. They're liable to snip pieces here or there and use it against you at some point in the future. Yeah. At 600 some episodes in, I'm sure I said something somewhere that offended somebody, disappointed somebody, let somebody down, upset somebody, whatever. But I try and remain 1, consistent, 2, consistent, and 3, consistent. I'm not going to just make stuff up. I'm not going to just throw stuff out there. And look, there are times, I guess I had an episode last week, where I get maybe a little edgy. I get a little more emotionally involved in what I'm doing than what is ideal. But I try really hard not to devolve into a bunch of name calling. I try really hard not to just drift into Navy talk. I mean, believe you me, that'd be super easy. And I'd probably do better. I'd probably have more downloads and more listeners if I were to just devolve into calling people names, using coarse language, and being rude all the time. But I don't think I'd be nearly the value add that I attempt to be. I'm trying to be even-handed. I'm trying to be fair. I'm trying to hear people out. I'm trying to give people that are at least nominally on my team an opportunity to speak for themselves and defend themselves. So to that end, I've committed to give a number of candidates in Allen interviews. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to be said, but I'm going to do that. I'm also going to, or I've committed to give a guy that's running for judge an interview. Again, I'm not looking to make these easy peasy, I have nothing to say. They're going to be open-ended questions. They're going to be given roughly 30 minutes to say what they want to say, but I want them to say it in their own words, and I'm going to push and cajole just a little bit of information out to see what's really going on there, what makes them tick, what makes them the value add to their community they're looking to serve. That's what I do, and that's why I do it. Because everything that we do matters, and you need to make it matter. With that, I'm going to be late today, but with that, this has been According to Callus, and I will see you on the upside. I guess it should be other side. It is episode 612, and it will be the other side.